I'm recording it as well.
Thanks, Gary.
Aloha and welcome to Matrix Body Mechanics Live. I'm your host, Micah Sky. It's going to be quite a show today. I'm really excited for the guest I have today. My group and team of researchers has been uncovering pieces of the puzzle. All of us have. And give me 1 second, guys. I have a relay. There we go. Okay. I'm super excited because one of the researchers on my team, a dear friend of mine who's been studying everything, brought me this this magical being's breakdown, and I'm going to acknowledge this magical man and his partnership, his amazing partner. And we got to watch them and go deeply through a lot of the information that he's profiled. We have very few amazing elders in our understanding of the Western world and our people. And this is truly an amazing elder of wisdom that I am honored to have on the broadcast today. And we're going to get into quite a bit today. I ask you to keep an open mind, an open heart, and really work to balance yourself between being receptive and also working within logic and reason. Our guest today is Charlie Freak. Charlie, thank you so much for coming onto the broadcast for Matrix Body Mechanics Live.
Oh, absolute pleasure. It's just an honor to be here, Micah, and we had a wonderful chat before the show, and so I'm very excited to be able to share that kind of gnosis with everyone.
Well, I'm planning for the most part on sitting back and really absorbing more. I've listened to a lot of your broadcasts several times over, so I feel very well versed to be able to both fill in some pieces for myself and also plant some seeds, because I know a lot of truth-seeking individuals will be tuning in and witnessing this broadcast, and I hope to be answering some of the questions that we have for future forward once we kind of lay out for everybody the timeline from 2017 onward, and then looking into the next couple months. I want to touch base on a couple prophecies that have been recycling prophetically. We won't even say prophecies, just prophetic dreams coming up for people and consciousness, and that's one of the ways that I track truth as well. As you can see a pattern within the matrix of consciousness, and it reveals itself the more that you pay attention to it. So some beautiful inquiries there. And then obviously I'm so excited to get into a deconstruction of the divine mechanical brilliance of this body, what it's truly supposed to be doing for becoming awakened, and the allegorical representation of this ancient book that you have so brilliantly unpacked, began unraveling. And I just want to state before anyone hears this and they're triggered in any way, everything we are talking about is the full acknowledgement and honoring of Christ and Christ consciousness. It's not a disregarding, it is not a disrespecting of, and I would love to kind of have your confirmation on that. We're actually looking deeper into truly honoring what it is, that the Christ metaphor, the Christ concept for all of humanity to become followers of the path of. And it is, in a sense, the only way, but it's not the way you think. And we're going to get into that today.
Yeah, it's welcome to the welcome to the reality of the Western world for those of us who have been born and raised, or what they would call birthed and raised in the Western world. So we exist in a fantasy realm called maritime admiralty law, where we have been reduced down to corporations, because a corporation is all in capitals, and it is a dead body. It is a dead representation of something that is or was living. And so it's a very deep metaphor for them. And essentially to them, the cabal, it is their out. It is their way of not taking heaven by force and therefore not suffering the consequences of their actions by God. And of course, they're going to, because tricking babies is is far from an honorable or an acceptable practice, and that of course is what they do to all of us, and indoctrinate parents. And so when you choose to stay in your left brain and you stay within the electrical circuit of the samsara, the great wheel of life that goes around and around and around, you just keep getting reborn into this forgetfulness of the baby. And of course, the reason is because that's left brain. And left brain, there's no memory of where we've been, what we are, and the collective whole of all reality. But in the right brain, that's exactly what it is. And that's exactly where you go to. And that's exactly the gift that you receive, which is the knowingness. So the simple thing for your viewers to really wrap their minds around in the very beginning is this: the world can be divided into inside and out, a division between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. The entire Bible, all of the ancient beautiful scriptures, each are absolutely perfect in their own way. Not one is any better than the other, and they're all telling you the same story, but in their own beautiful, beautiful way. And these are gifts, because the more we know about each culture's unique perspectives, the more that we learn, the more that we grow, the more that the wiser we become by tapping into their unique genius of their unique culture. And when we embrace one another as the true brothers and sisters of the one Father, the one Creator, then we get better. And that's what this is all about. It's all about the apprentice becoming the master. So for all those people that doubt Donald Trump, everything Trump does is a dichotomy of the left brain versus the right brain, and everything he does is symbolic. It's symbolic and numerological gestures. So what's the last show that Trump did prior to running for president, becoming the president? He was The Apprentice. He was the star of the show for The Apprentice. And what did he do on The Apprentice? You're fired, and you're fired, and you're fired, and you're fired. And then he becomes president, which is the mass star. And what's the first thing he does in the swamp in Washington, D.C.? You're fired, and you're fired, and you're fired, and you're fired. So this is a symbolic gesture of the journey of man, the journey of life, which is to go from the apprentice to the mass star. And this is left brain to right brain. And here's the thing. Left brain, as you heard me discuss briefly in the very beginning, is an electrical circuit. It is the dime brain. It is 10% of the brain's capacity, and every single ancient culture understood this. They all described the dichotomy of the two brains as 10% and 90%. And this is where that metaphor of the 10 or the dime brain comes from, relating to the left brain. Now, the left brain, like all electric currencies, are circuits, and they have fuses to prevent them from overloading. So there's all sorts of problems beset with electricity. Electricity in its rawest, purest form, as Nikola Tesla observed and described, is a downward causation. And in fact, Tesla said this is what these Baal, B-A-A-L, these Baal worshippers of the globe model were getting wrong about their theory of gravity, where gravity is pulling everything into the center of the earth. He said, no, it isn't. That would make the movement of the planets out there impossible if that existed. So he said, what they're observing is the natural downward causation of electricity, that the boundaries of our ether are bounded on the extremities by magnetism, which is the great power, the great force, the eternal force, and centered like a monadic dot or a monadic circle at the North Pole, which is, of course, the center pole or the center dot of the Earth. And it's a monadic circle. Of course it is. And in the very center, of course, you have magnetism as well. And so this gives you the difference, the two directions or forces or movements of magnetism on the outer edge and the inner edge, and they spin in two different directions to create this power between them, where the opposites attract and the equals repel. And that's the very nature of magnetism. So everything in between that is electricity, and electricity is constantly a downward causation. So it comes down upon us. So it's a weight. Magnetism is a weight. And so you can look at the physical body as a breakdown between two systems: the nadis, which are the nerve systems, which funnel electrical energy from upon high down low. And then you, of course, you have the chakra, the chakra system. And the chakra is essentially a superhighway of light. And that is the kundalini magnetic energy, which rises. So here we have this great difference between electricity and magnetism. Electricity, which is temporal is temporary. So you can always think of electricity this way: it is the oscillating wave in the ocean. The moment that wave meets a force, it violently thrusts itself up into this brief lifetime, and then throws itself upon the shore, and then washes back in the sand and the foam, and lays there dead until such time that a new consciousness or a new energy can sweep into this and resurrect it back into life. So if you choose to live, and this is, you were talking earlier, the balance between an open mind and then your logic and reason. Just everything that I teach is pure logic and reason. This is purely logical. If everything in God's creation is a duality, and it is, everything is tied to its polar opposite. That's the very nature of this fallen world. Singularity in heaven above, duality in the fallen realm. So we chose to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's a metaphor. The whole Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, they're all written in similes and metaphors and allegories. They're all allegories of human physiology. So when we ate of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, that's us thinking for ourselves in the left hemisphere of the brain, the dime brain. And when we do that, we fall out of the singularity of heaven above into hell below. And why is it hell below? Because now anything goes through the gift of free will. And where we position our frequency determines the outcome. In other words, like Tesla said, once again, Nikola Tesla said that everything is energy. Therefore, if you understand that all creation is energy, then you need to know frequencies, vibrations, and pulses. Right. Electricity vibrates, magnetism pulses. And we'll get into that later, but there's a profound difference between the two of them. And to bring this gnosis back home, it finishes this way. Once again, electrical waves are temporal. So when they use themselves up, they die. So therefore, if you choose to live electrically out of the left hemisphere of your brain, you will know birth, you will know life, you will know a painful death, you will know rebirth, and you will know a painful birth and then life. And so it's pain and suffering is this realm of the left brain, where you're attempting to take singularity and apply it in duality. And that's a problem because your mind is split into two. So God, everything with God and God's creation is free will and choice. So therefore, there has to be another way. There has to be. You know this logically and reasonably. You know that there must be another way. Now, it doesn't appear to be. I grant you that. You look around, what do you see? You see people growing old and dying all around you. It's just what we do. Come on, Charlie, wake up. It's what everybody does. No, what would happen if the couple down the road who have figured out all of this and who are currently about 11,000 years old and look like they're a happy couple who's 50, what would happen if they publicly announced that? I mean, this is not a fantastical reasoning to say that they might be lynched publicly as witches and warlocks, and burned at the stake. We fear what we don't understand. And therefore, the people who have figured these things out are pretty cautious about sharing them. And besides, if somebody wanted to share that, hey, I'm 1,000 years old and I can prove it. Would you like to live to 1,000 years old? What mainstream platform is going to give you time to share that knowledge? Theirs is based on you being weak. Theirs is based on you being sick. Theirs is you being living in a fearful reality where you are disconnected to your brethren, and separated and living these lonely lives, these pathetic lonely lives. And the only way you can sort of quench your thirst is to buy these worthless material goods, and you just collect and collect and collect material goods to try to satiate the loss and the emptiness that you feel inside. So there's an alternative, and that alternative is what is called magnetism. Okay, here's this explains everything, and this is the ultimate conspiracy. You can go to university, you can get a degree in virtually anything. You can get a degree in Ford Model T mechanics in poetry. So, you can fix cars and figure out a way to do it poetically at the same time. I mean, they will give you a degree in colleges and universities for virtually anything. They'll happily accept your money and give you some kind of ridiculous degree. What they won't give you a degree in is magnetism. Nobody teaches magnetism. And you look at the most brilliant engineering minds or the most brilliant scientific minds that exist, and they virtually know nothing about what magnetism is. Now, the question to ask is why? What is the difference? So I said that if electricity are these temporal waves that are temporary in nature, and they come and they go and they die, then what is magnetism, and what does magnetism produce? It produces what are called scalar or longitudinal waves, what some people have called Tesla waves, because of the work that Nikola Tesla did with the transmission of free energy. So what is the shape, my friends? What is the shape of a scalar wave? It is the number 8. And what do we know about the number 8? There is no beginning, there is no end, there is only continuance. And that is why the number 8 is the symbol for eternal life, eternity. And that is what magnetism produces. So here you have, once again, the orange-haired clown who's a complete dunce, who says covfefe instead of coffee in his tweets. Donald Trump just doesn't know anything. He's just a fool, and the mainstream media likes to make fun of him. And what was his slogan to make help win the election and let people know what was needed for America to resurrect itself? It was MAGA. Make America great again. Okay, well, you have to make the whole world great again, or it doesn't work. If you're surrounded by impoverished nations, then you're going to eventually become impoverished as well. So it's for everyone. So why would he say MAGA? Because MAGA is 2 words or 2 symbols. Okay, so in Sanskrit, if you go back to the saintly script of Sanskrit, that's what Sanskrit means. San is saintly, skrit is script, saintly script. Sanskrit was created by the Aryans. The Aryans is this divine race who essentially are the builders of our world. What you see is the brilliant, all what came before us is the brilliant work of the Aryans, who were able to build these enormous structures, and we have no idea how to do these things today. And they were beautiful and they were functional, and of course they all had great spires, and they transmitted energy wirelessly, and they transmitted knowledge or information wirelessly, because what they recognize is that the ether is the internet. And that's why when you sign up to have internet in your house, they give you an ether cable. They're telling you in plain sight. If you want internet, you just have to plug into the ether. The ether is what the scientists would call our atmosphere. So this is the realm of magnetism. Okay, so magnetism is an eternal wave or a scalar wave that is the shape of the eight. Okay, now the thing about magnetism is that this eight always runs up and then back down, up and back down. So in and of itself, it looks like, that's right. So it looks like a circuit, but it's not. Magnetism can be thought of as fields, because whatever the shape of the body, magnetism floods it all. So just think of like a plasma TV and how the concept of a plasma TV runs. Whatever the plasma is, it floods the shape, and in every single particle of this shape is flooded with this plasma, and therefore the image is relayed to us within the plasma, within therefore the boundaries of it. So that's what magnetism is. Magnetism essentially floods an area entirely, wholly. So magnetism is not a circuit, it is a field. And then the fields are eternally perpetuated by raising up and then coming back down, and then raising up, coming back down. And the very nature of that, of course, you could describe as resurrection or regeneration. So then now these are biblical terms, and these are biblical terms that relate to Jesus Christ, or the higher understanding of the story of Jesus Christ, which is Jesus Christ to become Christ Jesus. If you only acknowledge, this is the show that I just did on my channel as well, if you only acknowledge the reality of Jesus Christ, then that immediately gives you away as a Jesuit. And that's who put together what the Bible would become in the Council of Nicaea through the Emperor Constantine. The Jesuits are the order of Jesus, and these are not holy men. These are businessmen.
They're mobsters.
Have a vested interest. Go ahead.
I was just saying, these are the mobsters. These are the enforcers.
That's correct. So the Jesuits are the pirates of the ocean that became the pirates of the land. And of course, who are the pirates of the land? That's the banks. The banks rule you and own you through this illusory system of debt-based currency.
Which give everybody the first the OG, the original gangster name, which would be the Phoenicians.
That's correct. So that's right. And where in, so here's more logic and reason. Where is Phoenicia, the ancient realm of Phoenicia? Where is Phoenicia located? It's on the other side of the rolling hills of the Holy Land. So the Holy Land is very close to the eastern shores of the Mediterranean. And if you climb up the gentle slopes of the eastern slopes of the Mediterranean, you climb right up to Jerusalem and then down into the sacred valley of the Holy Land. And then if you exalt yourself upon high, or you just look at an airborne image, you'll see that the Holy Land is shaped in the exact shape of what the Bible teaches, which is the human torso. That's what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches you from the root of your torso, which would be the Muladhara root chakra, or from the base of your spine all the way up to the crown of your head. And sacrum. So what do we see? Yeah. So what do we see when we look down from upon high in the Holy Land? We see the Sea of Galilee to the north, which is shaped exactly like a human skull. Then we see, coming out of the bottom of the skull, we see the spine, which is the Jordan River. And the Jordan River runs all the way down to the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea is shaped exactly like a human sacrum. So there you have in plain sight, in the Holy Land, the very nature of this entire creation. And it also is code and tells us that we humans are the highest form of God's creation. So we are very, very special and magical. And of course, with that comes great responsibility. So if we're going to be the most exalted form of God's creation, then we have to act like it. So animals exist to complete us, to teach us in their own way, and as all animals do, to give us unconditional love. And there's so much that we can learn through this unconditional love. And so they look to us as leaders, and we eat them. And as I say to all of our listeners, you just need, once again, with logic and reason, to listen to what I'm about to say. How is it that you expect to have life and good health by let's go through this completely, by force breeding, torturing, skinning, murdering, and then consuming their dead, rotting flesh? So that kind of sounds like the adrenochrome process of what these monsters are doing to our children.
And I was going to say that.
Yes, and that's exactly what we are doing to animals. So when we get through all of this, the first thing that we all need to do is take a look at what we're doing to animals, because what we're doing to animals is what these monsters are doing to our children. And why do they do it to us? Because they see us as animals. Why do we do it to animals? Because we see them as something less than us. And how can you do that if you are truly a child of God? If you're truly connected to the Creator's golden creation, because remember, the word creator is two words, or actually it's two words and a symbol. So crea from the Latin is to create or to make, crea. And then or is gold. So it's telling us that the Creator creates gold, or the Creator is a creation, or his creations are a creation of gold. And then in the middle, connecting these two words, is a symbol, which is the letter T. And the T is a symbol of the cross, which is a representation of the human torso. There you have the head north, and the two shoulders east and west, and the torso to the south. And that's what the cross truly represents, is the fourfold nature of man. As above, so below, as within, so without, as with the universe, so with the soul, the Hermetic principle. So that's what the word creator is. So he is the creator, he is the maker of gold in the physical realm. And that's what, therefore, we are the golden children of the Creator. And if we're the golden children of the Creator, then we would never commit murder, and we would never eat dead, rotting flesh as a source of food. And then people wonder why. They don't even bat an eye as everybody now dies. And so they say that modern science tells us we're getting better and better, but that's untrue. When I was a kid, all of my grandparents and aunts and uncles consistently were living into their 90s. My grandmother, who's an amazing lady, died well into her early hundreds, and she was still driving her Studebaker all by herself when she was in her early hundreds. And now today, the richest people in the world, rock stars and movie stars, they're dropping dead from strokes and massive coronaries at 56 years of age, and nobody bats an eye.
Now, wouldn't you say this touches base on something we were speaking about before the show, which is just processed food in general? Just the process that we have in this world now, more processed food than we did in the 40s and the 50s. In fact, a bowl of spinach in the 50s is the equivalent of a bathtub's worth of spinach today, because of the depletion of the soil, the mineral content. And we've been depleting everything, and the industrialization of food in general. And that includes vegetarian agriculture, which is by far one of the most destructive forms of industrialized agriculture. It just depends on what value you decide to place on life. Do you just place it on these cows, or do you place it on the multiple insects, birds, small woodland forest creatures, rodents that are destroyed as they commercially farm these lands humans destroy these forests, take hundreds and hundreds. There's actually more animals destroyed per square foot in the acreage for industrial vegetarian agriculture than with actual animal farming of animals that were raised specifically for this. I don't support either industrial farming in general or industrial agriculture, but it's interesting to see that, you know, there's a lot of vegetarians that don't understand that the vegetables that they got, and I like how you said it, the ones in the stores, they're picked before they're ripe. They're kind of dead fruits and vegetables anyways. They have no idea that on top of that, it's also contributing to the mass death of a lot of life on the planet.
Yeah, brilliantly said. Absolutely, 100% correct, and so well said. And again, so when you do go to, if you go to a supermarket, that's code for a death market, because there's nothing of life or value in there. And again, if you want your fruits and vegetables to be of value to you, then of course they have to be vine ripened, because it's through this process of the birthing of, or the borning of all life, that it is always through the stem. It is always through this connection
Just
from
like you
the
said
mother
earlier
earth.
with a baby, and that like we just had our fourth child, which, by the way, just for perspective, how intense it is for much of what's coming out today around the children, to have children and to be aware of these things, and is, you know, I feel my own role to bring awareness around this, my own parental freedom fighter, awareness fighter to protect the children. But we had a lotus birth, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is where you allow the placenta to stay connected until it dries up and falls off naturally, which, as I like the way you described, that's your vaccine packet. That's your immunological packet that's supposed to stay connected, that's going to help you adapt to everything that you need in this world as you're acclimating to its environment that is still alive, and it's still feeding you information and nutrients. And so this was the first baby of the four babies that I am blessed to be a father of, that this lotus birth was done, where the umbilical cord was completely allowed to stay on. And it was a powerful process to see, and almost just vicariously magical to live through this little being and say, wow, this wasn't done for me, or I wasn't able or conscious at the time to do this for my other kids. So amazing to witness this happen for this little being.
Yeah, what a wonderful story. And we recently just had our first grandchild, little Dante, and that came through our beautiful daughter Sinead. And Sinead had the strength and the wisdom to have this beautiful natural birthing process. Dante is such a healthy, happy child as a result of this process. And of course, you know, with a proper birthing mother, who, you know, is helping you have this birth at home. You never want to be doing this in an industrialized prison, which is what they call hospitals. It's hospitals is just a code for prisons. Schools are a code for prisons. If you're putting your children into you know, this government slash corporate state-run schools, then you're putting them into death markets. Everything
Well,
is just
hospice
about
is
death.
like where
There's
people
no
go to
life.
die, right? Hospice is like where the elderly go to die. So it's part of the word of hospital, right? I mean, you
It
know.
absolutely is, and they're so well aware of that. So if you want to celebrate life, it needs to be at home with the family, because everything is about home and the family, and it's about building your home upon solid rock. And of course, that is a metaphor which we can get into later in the show. But that's all this journey that we must go through, because if, as fathers, if we truly care for our family, then we have to build our home for them in a location that no tempest can ever touch or interrupt our righteous experience. And that, of course, is that we have to build our home upon the most solid rock. And in our experience, that would be the diamond. And the diamond, of course, is symbolically attached to the pineal gland, because when you don't use your pineal gland, besides being calcified, inside your pineal gland essentially collapses. And if you were to look inside of it, it is virtually like sand. So if you were, and it's just allegorically, it's just a perfect metaphor for what's going on in our lives. So when you don't use your pineal gland, it is a vast desert wasteland. And it has very little shape to it. And it is just useless and worthless to you when it's the portal to the Father. That's where Jacob crossed the river in Genesis 32:30, wrestled with his ego for an entire day. And then this manifestation from God said, "What is thy name?" And he said, "Jacob." He said, "No, that is too poor a name for thee. I shall call you Israel, and ye shall be gifted the promised land, the land that is flowing eternally with milk and honey." And these are all beautiful codes, beautiful allegories for what goes on inside of us. And this isn't theory. These aren't theories, as modern science continually dabbles in, where nothing is proved. Even though we live in a positive gravitational environment, they can't perform a single experiment to prove gravity. And all you have to do is just wet a tennis ball, spin it around and observe, and water falls off the ball. And that's a tiny ball with filaments on it that are, could help to keep the water on the ball, and the water just spins right off. Yeah, but we have this massive ball with salt water, which is unbelievably heavy. And there's quadrillions of gallons or liters of salt water, but it doesn't fall off into space, and nobody bats an eye at this. And rock stars with billions of dollars are dying at 56 from coronaries, and nobody bats an eye at this. And nobody's batting an eye at the complete insanity of our upside down reality, because we're taught lies. We're taught nothing but lies. And so babies are taught, parents, and just think about this. If you tried to do what's right by your children, and you sent them to school, and your children began to talk about the things that you were doing at home. So for example, your child told your classmates, and it got back to the teacher, that you were not immunized, and your parents don't believe in that sort of thing. And then when it comes time for vaccinations, you opt your children out of these things. The school freaks out. And if they try out of threats and fear to get you to agree to it, and if you hold to yourself and resist, then they put your name down in their little logbooks, and they begin to write a story about you. That's who gets written about in these prison schools. It's the ones who do things right. And the ones who do things right, they get written up because you're a weirdo, and you're a weirdo because you don't do what the others do. And of course, you go back to the Bible. What does the Bible teach us? That we must follow the path that is straight and narrow, and few shall follow this path, and few shall come to know thy one true Father. But the many will take the path that is spacious, that is wide, and it has many twists and turns to it, and it will always lead you to a precipice. And that is, again, the perfect metaphor for what is going on in this world. What did Mark Twain say? Mark Twain said that if you ever find yourself on the side of the majority, turn and run.
Right.
That's not.
I believe he also said it's easier to convince somebody of a lie than it is to show them the truth.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. You could say to somebody, I'm going to show you the truth, and they will just simply resist, and they will gladly stay within the theory of a lie. They don't even need proof for it. They just don't want to challenge. And that, of course, is what we describe as I think the best definition of the left brain ego, and that's the tapeworm. And that's because the tapeworm attaches itself to the very core and essence of you physically, and it demands what it wants from you. And when you resist it, it gives you pain. And then, of course, organized society is designed to give you nothing but pain. And pretty soon in your life, if you try to do what's right, you find that you're just in constant pain. And it's much more easy if you just give in. And then the tapeworm eases off on you if you just give in. And what does the tapeworm want? It wants Coca-Cola. It wants Pop-Tarts. It wants
And we don't
cheeses.
even have to say tapeworm at this point. We could say the developed fungus in most people, and
Yeah.
candida. I mean,
Oh,
there are actual physiological things that are in you already that are calling you to put more garbage into yourself, because as soon as you stop eating that, your body is actually designed to start getting rid of it right away. It starts trying to scoop buckets out of your boat that's filling up. And so it's calling to you to put more of that in. I mean, that's the same with drug addiction. It's what drugs do. As soon as you stop doing drugs, their body starts getting it out of you, and it's calling. There's almost a form of consciousness to it. It's calling for more of it. It's interesting to look at how a lot of these things, as we both have talked about, have been orchestrated as such to keep you in that spacious world with the twists and the turns instead of the straight and narrow. And I like this as the start for our talk specifically, because I want you just briefly to share how you, because a lot of people are triggered already, I'm sure. And that's a good thing, because we are the disturbance in the homogenization. And that's exactly what Christ was embodying in the body. He was a disturbance in the homogenization. And so I just want you to give a little context that you yourself and Polly were like, this guy Trump is a clown. What is this Q stuff? Like, you were on the side of, in the beginning, like, this guy's part of all this stuff. I've been studying this for 20 years. I had a radio show 10 years ago because the last psyop didn't sit well, even with the left brain for me. And of course, the right brain was receptively being called to what's really going on. And so for 3 years, I had a show 3 hours every Sunday doing this stuff. So it's really even weirder for me 10 years later to see how much it's coming back full circle. And so just a little context of yourselves, how you guys were like, where you were at then, and then how it's sparked from 2017, just a little bit of that journey. We don't have to, people can check out other videos for the full timeline, but it would be cool to share the trinity of power that was taken down. And everybody, listen, you know, all of this, you can do your own research and you can confirm each one of these events. You can confirm what took place behind it and do your research with it. But we're going to give you the timeline to look through, because I feel like it gives a good context. And then as we transition from that timeline, you know, there's some interesting, you know, we're coming into some of the hardcore months where these pirates are desperate, and they're going to be trying anything they can coming up to this election. And there's been some prophetic dreams from 3 different people I've marked that have shown for the month of September, November, like a red X on the month, as in like there was some visions of Chinese or Russian troops on the soil in America, like some event that's going to stop the world, so to speak. And I know that it's going to intensify before it really shifts. And all of this obviously is leading up towards what we will get into at some point, December 21st to January 1st, 2021, which is not just about this year. It's every year that this magical process happens, that we're distracted into a bells and whistles concept of something else that's really, of course, not at all what it means or what we should be doing to fully live this optimal higher existence. You know, so it's time to connect the dots. Wherever you want to take it from here, the floor is yours.
Okay, so Colleen and I got to a point somewhere back in, I think, 2008, and we looked at each other and we just said, we cannot in good conscience support this system. We're both of us born and raised in Canada. I was born and raised in British Columbia on the ocean, and Colleen was born and raised in Alberta, which is connected to BC, but inland in the Rockies. And you know, we found each other because we were supposed to. We are absolutely supposed to. We are very, very connected. We're similar in many respects, but we're very different in many respects too. But we share the same core concept, which is that at all costs, we were here to discover what God is, because obviously, if God is the creator, then creation is the truth. So to discover the truth, you have to discover the creator. And so we were both 100% into that, whatever it took. And so we made an oath to each other, and that was that nothing would stand in our way between us and the truth. And so very quickly, what we came to understand was that truth is holistic. And so then we began to obviously, we were major readers. And then at this point, this is when YouTube started to really, come into fruition. And there's lots of people who are claiming to be truthers and putting out lots and lots of information in a more convenient format, which is, a 1 or 2 hour, 3 hour podcast instead of a 400 or 500 page book. And
Right.
so you give this a bit of a try, and you see. And so we just went through so many different people, and at the end of it, we just didn't have the right taste left over, because what we came to recognize with all of them is that they were only telling part of the story. And very interestingly and conveniently, I think, is that they were only telling the scary, fearful, down the rabbit hole side of the story. And they were not giving people a passageway back. So essentially what is happening largely for well over a decade in the truth communities, you have a large group, and these are the people with the biggest subscribers, the most famous names. And what they do is they take people on rides. They take people on rides and journeys, and then they say, get the hell out of my car. And then the person goes, well, I don't even know where I am.
Yeah.
And
they're all
that's
hyper
just not
adrenalized. They're already hyper adrenalized because everyone's already running to some degree on fear. So yeah, it plays more towards the fear element, that survivalistic, animalistic element. But ultimately, and it's interesting, it's getting a lot of scrutiny in the mainstream media right now. They're utilizing this by saying, all this Q stuff is so dark and negative. It's all dark and negative and this and that. And that is one of the things that really, I won't, it more than resonated when I saw how you broke it down. Obviously, Charlie, you went through everything, the darkest of dark, the harvesting of, we're looking at some really dark stuff. So it's not as if there wasn't that component, but there wasn't the negativity, and the context of the overall bigger picture was positive.
Absolutely, because of course, what we just have to realize, like I said at the beginning of the show, everything can be fully understood as the dichotomy between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. So all we have to do is become a frugivore. What if we just quickly divert just for a sec? There are 4 different types of beings that consume food. There are frugivores, there are herbivores, there are omnivores, and there are carnivores. So first off, let me just say, and no one has ever challenged me on this, because of course you can't challenge me. 100% of human physiology, both inside and out, mimics exactly all other frugivores. Okay, so without a doubt, we are frugivores. What do all other frugivores do? They live in communal groups of families. There are no laws, and there are no necessity for laws, because there's little to no violence in their communities. They exist to teach, to raise, to love their children, and the raising of the children is a tribal or is a community-wide responsibility. It doesn't just rest to the borning parents, but it falls to all the elders in the community. It is a holy, sacred chore to see that our children are raised free and with truth, so that they can seek and find the Creator. And so you observe these things about the frugivore community, and you're just blown away. And what are they like? They're all thin. They're all athletic. And they have quick, clever minds, and they have quick, clever bodies. and again, loving and family oriented. And what do? They eat raw fruit. They have some raw vegetables. They even at times will forage for nuts and grains. And they don't cook their food ever. They just eat raw and predominantly fruit. And by the way, folks, that's all you need. Don't let anyone ever tell you any differently. There's no vitamin B12. There's nothing that you require that isn't naturally provided for you by God. Everything is perfectly thought out. All we human beings require is fresh, raw fruit. It has everything in there. But Charlie, how are we going to get a protein? It's all about protein. Your body makes all of the protein it needs itself. So you don't even have, people go on and on about broccoli has, 12.5 grams of or kilojoules of energy in a serving, whereas, an 8-ounce steak only has 6. And it's like, my goodness. So just the sprig of broccoli is more powerful, but you don't even need that. Your body makes all. So you see, if you took the time to actually educate yourself of actual truth, if you availed yourself of actual truth of God's creation, wow. I mean, just by doing that alone, you would become like a superhuman being in comparison to everybody else, because you're operating out of the truth, which is wonderment, which is just magic. Everywhere you look, where you see the truth, you just see magic creations, magical creations. And that's truly what we are. And they've got us completely bought and sold into the fact that, there were dinosaurs and now it's our turn and we're pathetic and we come and we go and who'll be after us. And there's no such thing as dinosaurs. There's no such thing as subatomic particles. I'm sorry to break the news to everyone. There are no, protons, neutrons, electrons, and these invisible subatomic particles. You have cells. Your body is made up of trillions of cells, and your cells are made up of molecules. And the molecules that are within you are points of light. They're called photons, and photons are points of light, and you can see them. They're not easy to see, but you can see them. Everything is tangible. Everything in God's creation for us is tangible. It's not theories, it's provable tangibility in God's creation. And what is photon light? That is light that comes, that is magnetic light, and it's light that is eternal, and therefore it is light that comes from God. So we were talking before the show, when you go outside at nighttime, why do they rule the nighttime airwaves with TV and movies and radio and distraction, because they don't want you going outside with your family. When you go outside with your family at nighttime, you sit around a fire and you look up at the stars and you talk about the things that you see and you embrace the light of the moon and the light of the stars. That's God's light, because the ether is held in by a firmament, and the firmament produces stars because it has these shapes, it has openings within the firmament, and all you're seeing on the other side is the light of the shining mind of the Creator. So this is creation. The light that you see in the night sky, which is through the moon and which is through the stars, is God's light. That is the light of creation. And you can heal yourself powerfully, both of the mind and the body, by just being in the miracle of this light. And of course, the same holds true with the masculine and the father during the daytime. So the nighttime is ruled by the magnetic mother, Mary. And so that is the moon, and the moon god is sin, which is the metaphor for Mary Magdalene, which is beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful, but she's just been tricked and she's fallen. And she needs to be resurrected again. She needs to be risen again. And so the night sky is filled with this beautiful magnetic energy of the mother. Go back to Sanskrit. What is the word? What does the word mag in Sanskrit mean? It means motion. And of course, if you go back to the syncretic principles of all creation, the Father is stillness, silence, stationary. There is no movement of the Father. The Father is in eternal meditation, is an eternal thought. All of this is happening in the eternal moment of the Father, who is still and stationary. The mother, who is number 2, letter B, who comes second, is constantly moving. That's what magnetism is. Magnetism is a constant motion. It never stops. So if you imbue yourself with magnetism, you'll never stop. I mean, it literally is that simple. What do we say about electrical waves? They're temporal waves, which means that they're temporary. They come and they go. So yeah, you look around you and you see lots of people dying, and that's just what human beings do. Well, that's, yeah, because that's what they put on the news. That's what they tell you. And that's what they've convinced people that we are. And that's what we do. So everything is holistic. So if you want to be magnetic, then you have to be alkaline, because that's what magnetism is. And what is alkalinity? It's just doing everything that's to the right, up and to the right. Everything that is righteous is alkaline. Everything that is acidic is to the left, to the west, which is death. And it's a choice. You have a choice. You are not a victim. You are absolutely whatever you want to be. So if you choose to cast thy net to the right, that is a choice to be of the living, not of the dead. So again, in our society, we're all given 3 capital letter names, which mark us as a corporation. And a corp is a corpse. Corporations are dead. They're corporations. So you exist legally, okay? There's a difference. Legally is their system, and lawful is God's system, okay? And there are no laws of the seas. The seas are the Wild West. The seas are unrulable or untamable. That's why the earth has to be still and stationary like the Father, because the land has to make sense, and the ocean makes no sense because there's constant movement and motion in the ocean. Right. That's an allegory for the left brain. The land is a perfect allegory for the right brain. And that's what we must do. We must become the Bedouin upon our camels, and we must seek constantly for that eastern gate of the ancient city of Jerusalem, which is called the gate of the eye of the needle. And what's the only way you and your camel and your treasures that you have discovered upon your journeys, what's the only way that you can get into the eastern gate of the city of ancient city of Jerusalem? Your camel had to get down upon its knees. And here's the thing with the camels. They were afraid and they wouldn't do it on their own. So the Bedouin had to also get upon his hands and knees in front of the camel, and he had to lead the way. So all the riches and the treasures had to be taken off the shoulders of the camel, take the load off of Fanny, and put the load right on me, says Robbie Robertson from the band in the song The Weight. Take the load off of Fanny, take the load off the camel, put it on the ground, and put all the weight on God. God's shoulders, the truss, is the truth. So God's trusses, his shoulders, are the truth. And it takes trust to have truth in the truss. So you see, these 3 words are powerfully connected. So the ultimate trust, the one that holds all the weight up and will never come crashing down upon us, is God's trusses, God's shoulders. And what we need to be able to have this protection, this wisdom for all time, is to simply take the load off of Fanny. And that's a metaphor for stop thinking out of your left brain. Take no thought. What does Jesus say? So the book of Matthew, one of the greatest singular writings in all of the ancient scriptures, chapter 6 is pure perfection. Pure perfection. If you haven't read for yourself, do so. The book of Matthew, chapter 6. Okay. So there, I think, are 34 verses in chapter 6, and it has to be read holistically. You can't just cherry pick these verses individually, because they're stories. Each chapter is a story, and the collection of these verses. So in the book of Matthew, in chapter 6, the entire process is that we go within thy closet and we shut the door in thy closet. And then in stillness and silence, we pray to the Father. But you don't pray with wasteful words. That's what the heathens do, is they stand in their fine clothes on the corners and pray so that others may see them pray. You go into the darkness, and in pure silence, you connect with the Father. And you never have to ask for what you need, because thy Father already knows what thy need. And then the passage talks about the birds. in the sky, and that the birds do not put away food for a rainy day. They eat and they eat and they eat, and then as the seasons begin to change and life on the branches begins to die away, they have no panic, because the birds completely trust that they will be cared for, that they will be provided for of the Father. And then Jesus says, do you think that you are less than that of a bird? Do you think that thy Father would provide for a bird but not for you? O ye of little faith. So this is what it is all about, is because this is where we get ourselves into trouble. And that's the dime brain. That's the left brain, the circuitry, the electric circuitry of the left brain, which is thought. That's where all thought comes from. Thinking is that left brain, and it gets us into trouble. There is a very famous nuclear scientist, and he became one of the sort of the founding fathers of sort of, the theories of Einstein and this pseudoscience in the realm of theoretical science. And this is a German-based scientist by the name of Max Planck, one of the most boring people that you could ever meet. And he spent his whole life devoted to science, and he was not really getting anywhere, although he was well respected and thought of. And then in between World War I and World War II, he had an epiphany, and Max Planck began to sort of just realize that in his life, all the causes of all of his problems were from all of the thinking that he took inside of himself, and that every time he thought, he couldn't stop thinking, and that his mind just kept thinking. And what it did is, he noticed very conveniently, is that it avoided the moment, and it kept reliving the past and then fretting about the future. So this is what most people do. So all that can exist is the now, the here and the now. That is the way. That is what Krishna taught. It's what Buddha taught. It's what Jesus Christ taught. It's what all of these ascended figures taught to us, that you must live in the now. So how do we live in the now? You have to get out of the left brain, because the left brain is constantly reliving the past, which is gone. So therefore it no longer exists. And the future never comes, because all you ever have is the moment. So if you're constantly
well, and you're infecting the present, which is the gift, referencing the past, which naturally will then bring that into the future. And so the present, the gift, is never a pure cauldron to create a new future, because it's infected with the past. And, I know we touched base on this today, that how can you, because, your neural pathways are like branches of a tree. And if you're conditioned through a society,
exactly right.
Yeah, if you're conditioned through a society to run a bunch of branches to the left, and you've built out this entire branch system into the left hemisphere of the brain, it's not so easy in terms of rewiring. And if you're carrying the neurochemical depository from everything that's happened to you, both conditioned homogenization from society, meaning false ideas of what's beautiful, false focuses of what's important or valuable to you as a human being, on top of your personal trauma accumulation and your individualized stress accumulation that's day to day, you are a chemical vessel that is hardwired to stay in the left and keep recycling this past. And we become condemned into the neurochemistry, even if we read something or we watch this YouTube live. So it's like, we need to come up with practical applications that are tangible and real to start applying in our lives. Because I know for many of you, you're hearing all this, and the ultimate question is, all right, great, what can I do? How can I change it? So I just want to throw one in before you continue, which is, most of us don't have a good portion of our actual etherical spirit, our light body, in our physical form, because we've gotten so deeply in the mental plane. And you can communicate with that right receptivity. You can communicate with the divine. And one of the ways is, and this is a great simple one to get you out of the left and into the right. You can command your essence, your spirit, your God consciousness to bring your thoughts from your head into your heart. I command my spirit to bring the thoughts in my head into my heart. And you say it 3 times, and then you do a numeric countdown. And I know you know this because they use these things to encapsulate stuff into our own subconscious. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I like to snap. The sound encapsulates it. You could also say, I command my spirit to direct my thoughts and my branches into the right brain from the left. And you say it 3 times and do that numeric countdown. These are little tiny practical applications. I know you do a lot of meditation, breath work. Opening your spine and activating your spine is a profound way to start flushing these chemical memories and take the pressure off Fanny. Like Fanny needs to drop that load off. But if there's all this pressure for her to keep going, she's not even seeing she can. One of my teachers said, it's so funny, if you're carrying a heavy suitcase, why don't you just let it go? Why do you keep carrying it? If you knew you could let it go, it's not shackled to you. Why do you continue to carry it? If you realized it was as easy as just letting it go and continuing forward, but we don't. We think we have to carry these things. We feel compelled to carry our trauma. And one of those things is that we're afraid of who would we be without those traumas? Who would I be without all of the suffering? Many people that I've identified with in my character of the illusion of who I am. And this is, again, referencing that left brain and identifying with this, with the mental plane and with the false identity that this is all that I am. And so we have to start coming up with some components, some exercises, some things that are tangible and localized, so we can start. And I do believe that the ancient sciences that came from the East, like the yogic sciences, are not only like they depending on how deep you want to go, they go so deep into learning how to manipulate your glandular systems to help you to manifest this milk and honey and fully activate the brain, activate the thymus, the hypothalamus, and ultimately the pineal gland. So I just wanted to plant that in there because I know that for a lot of people, it's like, well, this all sounds conceptually good, but how do we start changing it? What can we do?
Yeah, and again, that was wonderful. What you said, that was just beautifully said, just filled with so much wisdom, and it is just so true. So, folks, listen, I brought that up for this whole concept of Max Planck. So, Max Planck, again, what he basically said is that we get ourselves into trouble by thinking, and then the brain doesn't turn off, and it just thinks more. So, Max Planck said, listen, what do we do when we get ourselves into trouble with thinking? We then try to think our way out of the problem, and we just make it worse. And then we get to a point where now everything is so bad that we're finally forced to stop thinking because it's so convoluted, we can't even remember all the aspects to it. And then it's only then when we kind of just stop, drop the suitcase and the weight, and let go of Fanny, that things start to just magically resolve themselves, like somehow, some way. And that's what Max Planck, as this scientist, this very rigid, sort of nuclear scientist, what he began to observe, just casually observe. And then he began to do experiments within himself. And so what he found, very much like Carl Jung. So again, society, organized society, they teach you the one story of Carl Jung. And that was the early Carl Jung, who was connected to Sigmund, I'm a gigantic liar, Freud. And that's the Carl Jung that you know. But the Carl Jung that came after, when he let all of that ridiculous, those lies and that weight go, and began to meditate and had his best friend become his imaginary friend inside of his head. And he wrote the Red Book. And it basically read like Taoism and Confucianism and Buddhism and
he
Hinduism.
sparked many other people to carry the torch. Alan Watts being one of my favorite vessels, actually, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So these are rigid men of logic and discipline. And what they both said, both of them, including Max Planck, they said, wow, when we think, we get it all wrong. So then what's the opposite? We don't think. And so then that led them to meditation. So here you have these two rigid scientists, and who are, beginning to age. And suddenly now they're all about meditation, and they're all about breathing techniques, and they're all about changing their diets, and they're all about controlling their brain waves. And that's what they began to do. Both of them started to begin to research brain waves. And they found, for example, that there are 6 predominant brain waves, and that incredibly 5 of them are wonderful for the brain, and that only 1 of them is actually kind of toxic to the brain. And so what you begin to see is that, wow, this is almost, sort of like the left brain, right brain, right? So left brain, the dying brain, only 10%, and it's like a tapeworm, and it works against us. And the right brain is beautiful. And so they got into these waves. Now, I'm going to get back to this in just a sec. What they also notice, and this is the genius of Max Planck, is that here's what he said, folks, and I want you to really, 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 really listen to this. This is so important. He said that in our lives, we go through most of our lives in a state of fear. And these are these beta brainwaves. We'll get into the others in just a sec. But the one type of brainwave that works against us is beta. That's why when any of these corporations want to give you a prototype program for you to have for free and play around with, and then, make you really, truly ticked off because nothing really works with it, they call them beta programs. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a free beta program? Yeah, right. It's free. Take the beta. How does organized
just like
society,
the bait, right? Take the bait. You're taking the bait.
Exactly. What waves does organized society use to transmit radio? What waves do they use to transmit television or microwaves? All of these different organized societal waves that they broadcast endlessly out in the air, they all use beta waves as the carrier. And what are beta waves? Beta waves are violent. They're violent waves. They're up and down rapidly, and they're not consistent, and they have great disparity between above and below. So they're constantly taking you off the line, which is in the middle, which is what the Buddha taught, which is the middle way. It isn't all about just ascending up and to the right into the violet light of the crown chakra, and you become filled with that violet magenta light. If you only take the right-hand path and you stay disconnected to the sheeple on this physical plane, if you're here, but you're only ever just meditation, and you begin to distance yourself from them, you're going to eventually turn the violet light into violent light, because you're going to begin to judge against the very people that you're trying to save, you're trying to help, and you're trying to teach. So we must not only ever just cast thy net to the right and go to the right. That is the path. That is the way. That is how we get to where we need to get to. But as the Buddha taught, where we need to get to is the middle way. And if you look at litmus paper tells you everything you need to see, because below are all these reds. And when you get to the very bottom of litmus paper, it's, and by the way, it's 2 levels of 7, the 7 below, which is the 7 hellish energies, and then it's the 7 layers above. So it's 0 to 14. Litmus paper is 0 to 14, the 7 heavenly energies above, the 7 hellish energies below. And then what's in the middle? What's in the middle plane? Right in the middle, it's green. It's green. How many chakras do we have? We have 7 chakras, 6 in the body, and the 7th crown chakra above the skull. What's the middle chakra? That's the heart chakra. What is the representation of the heart chakra? It's green. It's green. And why is planet Eartha, which is the plane of inertia is planet Eartha. The Earth is flat. What is the color of the Earth? It's green. It's covered in greenery. Why? Because the golden sun produces white light, and the plants miraculously turn the white light into a green outcome. And so gold, white, green. Look at litmus paper. And again, once again, what are you seeing on litmus paper? And it's telling you all the time. So when you get to the top of litmus paper, it's purple, violet. And because the litmus paper is all about the chakras. because those are all
Right.
about your senses, because that's all the superhighway within you. That's the truth. And so what Max Planck was saying is that when we live our lives out of the state of fear, so that would be in the red chakras, that would be in the left hand path, the lower way, and that is fear-based. That's the lower brain, by the way. That's why you have a lower brain, midbrain, and a frontal lobe. You don't even get to access your frontal lobe out of the left brain. You can never, ever so all you people listening that are into logic and reason, you can't access your frontal lobe out of the left brain. You have to go to the right to be able to access the frontal lobe. What's the frontal lobe? That's your Sherlock Holmesian brain. What does Sherlock
That's
Holmes
your
do?
superpowers. That's your, yeah, that's your,
Ex-
yeah, that's your like superhuman, and really you can't access the frontal cortex unless you are stimulating really both hemispheres conduct electricity that activates the frontal cortex. And we need to access that. Problem is we're too wired to the left. So that means you do have to focus more to the right because it's underdeveloped, it's understimulated, it's underactivated. The left side's all good. In fact, interesting, I just want to plant the seed. There's something called gate control theory where pain travels slower to the brain than pleasure does. Very interesting. When you stimulate pleasure, it actually blocks the pain receptor gates.
That's right.
And so there's an interesting thing. This is where orgasmic birthing came from in the ancient times, is the women would actually compromise the contractions,
Exactly.
and the pleasure would block the pain, and they would relax and open instead of contracting. And they would have these prophetic psychic journeys and activations because they were arcing, archangel, as you've said before, the arced angle, they were arcing the hemispheres and stimulating, kind of like trying to turn over an engine that didn't have enough fuel. And they were arcing and stimulating the frontal cortex, thus activating their psychic potential, which we have been deeply trained to stay away from.
Again, beautifully said, and exactly so. And this is the thing about the right brain. The right hemisphere of the brain is the only way in which you can get into the magical realm. So like you were talking pre-show, we were discussing that essentially, what we are is so much about chemistry, and so little chemistry is taught to us. And yet everything about us is chemistry. They go into biology, and physics, but they somehow don't put a lot of priority in chemistry. Well, inside of us is the colostrum, and the colostrum is this magical creation that exists just to the right of the horizontal divide of the brain, at the very back crown. This is the true crown of all mankind, because when we are penitent before God and we are humble before God, we bow our heads. And when we bow our heads, this becomes the exalted crown. That's why the mercy seat, this is why the chimney, the foramen, where the presents from Santa Claus go down, it all leads to this background. So just to the right of the horizontal divide, at the very back of your skull, is the colostrum. And the colostrum has long been known as a sacred colostrum because of what the colostrum is responsible for providing us. So the colostrum provides all blood cells. The colostrum provides all corpuscles. It provides all white blood cells, therefore the bones and the marrow. The colostrum is responsible for the endocrine system. And of course, what the endocrine system is this fantastic system of naturopathic medicine, where Al the chemist, who practices alchemy, so he's an alchemist, and his name is Al the chemist because he is an alchemist and he practices alchemy within the brain. This is what he does if you let him. But here's the problem. If you constantly, we're talking about the difference between the O and the Q. If you constantly put toxic foods in, then all you're going to get out, so your thoughts and your actions, are going to be toxic, because you're putting toxic waste in, you're going to get toxic waste out. So what has organized society taught us that is how we should eat, big, strong bones and all of these things. And everything that they've got us eating is acidic. And yet, as we talked before, we're frugivores. And what are frugivores? They eat raw fruits, raw vegetables, and those are alkaline foods. We are alkaline. And so therefore, what's the other word that alkaline is very similar to? Alchemy. Alchemy is the science of alkalinity. To be alkaline is to become an alchemist. And so we have this miracle genius inside of us who is named, whose real name is Al the chemist. We just know him as Santa Claus. The sainted claustrum is Santa, saint, Klaus, claustrum. The sainted claustrum is Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is Al the chemist. And Al the chemist, if we would just leave him alone and take no food and take no thought and just be still and silent, Al the chemist would be going 100 miles an hour all day and all night, providing preventative medicine and constantly making us better, because that's what the endocrine system is designed to do. And it all works through these three wise men that come out of the East bearing gifts. These are the three wise men bearing gifts to the baby Jesus upon his birth that came out of the East. These are the three kings of the tribe of the Magi. Magi are are magicians, and they come from Zoroaster, who decoded the night sky. And they came bearing three gifts. And what are the three gifts that they bore? They bore melatonin, which is produced in the pineal gland. They bore serotonin, which is produced in the pineal gland. And they produced dopamine, which is produced in the hypothalamus. And so again, if we are the optic thalamus, the very center of the third ventricle of the brain, which is known everywhere in every culture as the light of the world, the optic thalamus, what is the optic thalamus, which is the child? What is the optic thalamus surrounded by? Up and to the right, the pineal gland. Down and to the left, the pituitary gland. And then right below it, the hypothalamus. Right. And that is melatonin, serotonin, and dopamine. What does melatonin? The books started to come out in the 1980s, and then they were everywhere in the 1990s, and now they're completely gone again. And all of these books were saying, wow, melatonin. They first started to say that melatonin can stop the aging process, and it literally makes your skin soft and supple and white again. And so you just look years and years younger through the promotion of melatonin. And then eventually in the 90s, the books went further than that, and they said, wow, we began to research these ancient cultures, and they all exalted the pineal gland and the production of melatonin, because melatonin, they said, reversed the aging process. Wow. And that these ancient cultures said that you could live forever by copious amounts of melatonin being produced within you. And then serotonin, and serotonin is the pituitary gland. And what is serotonin known as, or what does it do? Serotonin is the happiness drug, or the happiness secretion. These are secretions, sacred secretions from the sacred Santa Claus. And so this is the happiness. So what serotonin does is it's constantly giving you these beautiful endorphins and all of these beautiful alkaline substances, and they make you feel whole. They make you feel complete. They make you feel connected, and they make you feel happy. And so the melatonin is reversing, is making you fulfilled, and is reversing the aging, and serotonin is making you happy. And then in the hypothalamus, the third of the three kings, he brought dopamine. And what is dopamine known as? Dopamine is known as the feel good. And they're actually mainstream scientists that tell you that dopamine is very dangerous, and you have to learn to regulate your dopamine, because dopamine leads to addiction. It's like, wow. Oh, wow. That is the exact opposite of the truth. If you right. don't have dopamine in your body, then you are easily manipulated by addictions, because you just said it though. Dopamine.
You just said it. And most human beings are epigenetically damaged from yes. birth, and from their ancestors before them. because those epigenetic damages have been caused by external substances that have been taken that cause epigenetic defects or damages, which means that when little kids are born and they become one and what? Two terrible twos. Why do we have that phrase, terrible twos? Because that is when children hit a wall of dopamine and serotonin imbalances from the epigenetic damages passed on intergenerationally from their parents and their parents and their great grandparents who had a cup of coffee or whatever it was they were introduced to. And so what happens at terrible twos? What do we start doing? We start already supplementing them, and usually sugar becomes one of the first things. And so what happens is then we go on a dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, melotropin roller coaster, always trying to externally fulfill these sacred secretions while progressing the inability for our own pharmacy that's right in here to actually repair itself, regenerate itself, and start producing its own serotonin and dopamine. Just so everybody knows, when you take something, whatever drug it is, it's actually not the drug that even gets you high. The drug stimulates your own pharmacy to release that chemical. It's actually just stimulating your pharmacy to release something it already makes. So don't illude yourself to think whatever you're doing or externally taking is doing that. It's not. It's actually just stimulating your own production of something that is shut off and will not turn back on as long as you keep supplementing. And that is something that nobody really understands, which is what creates these high and low aspects and this this enslavement process externally, instead of repairing the epigenetic damages. Because most people will just say, oh, if you have epigenetic damage, you can't repair them. They're just, you're screwed, and this is why people justify obviously continuing to externally supplement. Oh, this is what I have. This is my challenge. This is what I'm going through. But that is not the truth. Your body can regenerate and repair itself. And there's actually all kinds of techniques to be able to do that. And as more free energy and healing technology comes out on this planet, as some major changes come, I believe all of that will start being reconstructed in hopefully, a very affluent way for those that are left to live on in what is created. And actually with that, I do want to just touch base on the path towards where we're going. And where we've been, and how this man that nobody, everybody hates. My mom hates him. I used to laugh at the SNL skits. I was definitely, I think that was one of the humbling things. I think same for you, Charlie, is I have gone through a humbled process where I've had to look that I was actually wrong and that I was deceived and that I went along with the logical reason narrative that was displayed to me by the controlled display flow of information, which is the mainstream media, and reevaluating every sequential event that you went through, Charlie, from another side. I remember all those events, bro, from the Saudi Arabia to Israel to the Vatican to China. I remember those events, those trips. I remember things that didn't really make sense about them, like why he was allowed to go to the Forbidden City, or why they moved the capital to, Jerusalem for the US embassy, like none of that stuff. And I think the mainstream media kind of made weird attempts to play on the, how off it was, or they spun it this way or that, but it was so powerful and refreshing to watch you go through the timeline, especially with obviously articles that we could visually confirm with it. And I really, I really challenge everybody to go look at this and then go watch the correlating information, do your own research for every one of the events that he timelines. So we're coming up on kind of the final stretch here where the pirates are kind of desperate in terms of what they're looking to make a move and do. In regards to that, just briefly breaking down the trinity of the power structure, taking down where do they have to go from here? I know that you've said that we've already won, and this greatest hits DVD package has been placed down in front of each government, getting them to capitulate, and now they're actually making them kind of play their sinister roles out, so to speak, but still all under control. So how much of that do you think they're trying to, in their own way, sneak around and maybe try to finagle with the room they even gave them to play those roles right now, to play things out. I know that, you know, it's been expressed that there's a great aspect of those that are leading this liberation movement for our people are afraid that humanity is not going to be able to process a lot of this stuff as it comes out. And I know that's part of why people aren't seeing more of it. Or, you know, why is there still a Tom Hanks I'm seeing that's in Greece now trying to get citizenship? You know what I mean? Like, you know, because you see many intel drops where it's like, nope, he was arrested, he was executed. And so, you know, I would love it, however you're intuitively guided from the right receptive, to share with people some entrance point for them to start, you know, we've gone deep into this, but anyone who's just starting to come in, how can we not overwhelm them fully but engage in, you know, bring them into some level of that right brain receptivity around this?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I got a pooch. I got an unruly wolf.
Yeah, the other job that we have here is Colleen and I. We run the Shire Animal Rescue Sanctuary. So we take in unwanted, injured animals and we nurse them back to health. And of course, because none of the Mexicans want them, they stay with us, which is wonderful because they're our family. So we currently have 45. So
wow.
With every podcast that we do, there's 24 dogs that
oh my
that have to be asked to behave perfectly for 2 hours at a time. So they're wonderful.
Thank you, pooches. Thank you, pooches, for behaving yourselves. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, they're amazing. They love us so much. Wow, we're so fortunate. So yeah, so the first thing that I would say about everything that you were saying before, and just remember, everyone, this is why Jesus Christ is so much more than what the Jesuits of the Catholic Church tell you. Jesus Christ is the journey to become Christ Jesus, and you can't even begin to know what all of that means until you understand what Christ Jesus is. And that is what you were just saying about this rebirth, and that everything is a regeneration. So if you get your body healthy, you can change this merciful every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced. Well, that's mercy from God, because, the way that most people live their lives, it would probably be 700 years before, truth be told, that 700 years before their cells all replicated themselves. But in Colleen and I, and in healthy bodies, you can speed this process up to 11 months. 11 and that's where we're at. And of course, 11 is the master number, which is the letter K, which is perfect balance between the three: Father, Mother, Child. And it's also symbolic of, the harnessing of the higher and the lower worlds, the metaphysical and the physical worlds into one, which is the philosophy of Tai Chi. It's everything. It's everything. It's the truth. And that's why it's the master number. So 11 months versus 7 years. So once again, when people roll their eyes at us that, you can live forever. Well, what are we? We're cells. Well, what are we asking ourselves to do to live forever? Just live for 11 months. And then after 11 months, replace yourself with another group of cells, and then they'll last for 11 months. So what's so hard for the cells in your body to live for 11 months at a time and then completely regenerate? That's why all of these stories of Krishna, of Buddha, of Mithra, of Dionysus, of course, Jesus Christ, Christ Jesus, all of these ancient stories, they're all telling you the story of regeneration, because that is our way. And that, by the way, is Santa Claus. That's Al the chemist. And if you just allow the chemistry, if you allow the three wise men from the East to come and give you these gifts from the Magi tribe, then you'll become magic. Again, the root of all of these words, that magical words, is always mag. What's mag? Mag as in Mary Magdalene, as in the Mother Mary, as in magnetic energy. So once again, Donald Trump, MAGA, Make America Great Again. So how do you know Trump is so beyond just some, successful businessman and money? Make America Great Again is MAGA, mag for magnetism. So what are these? What are they? They hijacked the 5G wireless energy system, which, by the way, the coronavirus is a hoax. But when the second wave came, the second wave was going to hit us via the 5G wireless network. And these are waves that are even worse than the beta waves, and they're going to turn our brain to mush. And it would be blamed on the coronavirus. So there you just have a whole world sick and diseased and enslaved by something that doesn't even exist. So, our enemy is always invisible, because of course it is always relating to the brain and the thoughts that we do or don't take. So the real enemy has always been the 5G. And every time on Facebook, when I post that and I write these incredible dissertations and articles correlating this to the COVID-19 or coronavirus, we always get shut down. We always get shut down when you attempt to equate things back to the 5G, which powerfully tells you. So what we have to do is regenerate, and that's what all of these ancient spiritual stories are doing, is they're just telling you about this process of regeneration. So what is the answer? What is the way? Why is Donald Trump truly going to be a catalyst for God intervening? This is God intervention, the number 7, and everything about Donald Trump. If you just do your own research, everything about Donald Trump is 7, 7, 7. If you look at how old he was when he began to run for office, and then all of these unbelievable connections between the 7s in his life to the first day that he actually took office. And what you see constantly is 7, 7, 7, which is triple intervention, which is, 7, 7, 7 is 21, and 2 + 1 is 3, which is a holy trinity. And so if you know your symbology and you know your numerology, by the way, which are not evil, because the Phoenicians of the left brain, the Canaanites of the left brain, they have no right brain. The right brain is where you create things. Those are the Aryans, okay? The Aryans create out of the right hemisphere of the brain. That's where creativity comes from. The left brain is facts, figures, and logic. The right brain is lore, legend, and magic. So there is no magic in the left brain. There's no magic with these people. What they do is they take and then they pervert it. They're perversionists. That's what they are. They pervert God's creation. So they have all of their stars doing this, and then everybody's like, oh, look how evil they are. That's 666. Well, 6. The 6 is the journey of man. 6 and 6 is 12, and that's completion. And 1 + 2 is 3 is the Holy Trinity. And 6 + 6 + 6 is 18. And 18 is chi or chi. Well, that's right. Well, 18 is chi, which is our magnetic electrical ether, which is the energy of life.
Yeah.
And then 1 + 8 is 9, which is God consciousness. So
right.
So that's why in the Bible it's not 666 is the mark of the beast. No, it says that of a man or that of a beast, because it's always a choice. Go to the left or go to the right. Cast thy net to the left or cast thy net to the right. It's always a choice. So it's a duality. Everything in this creation is a duality. So what always I find with the masses and the truthers is that they always want to limit things to a singular meaning. So if like we were criticized with our videos, I always have the snake or the serpent, and it uncoils 3.5 times from the bait, and it rises, and then it unleashes fire. Well, of course, that is the kundalini rising, and that is the baptism of fire, which is right in the Bible, and which is necessary. The second baptism, which is purity. So,
it's also deeply integrated into both the Vedic culture as well as the culture with the Sikhs in the Sikh religion, is understanding that the Kundalini has a coil, three coils that has to unwind, and that actually in the ancient lore that I learned, it was made dormant because humanity wasn't ready for that power and that activation. So it was laid dormant to be unlocked when we were ready to embrace what is awakening. and that it's tied to the earth, that the earth has a kundalini as well. Whether it is, whether, of course, I see the plane aspect to it, but either way, that it's like a biological computer that we're inexplicably tied to, and that it is a reflection of our own bodies, and the awakening within it is tied to the awakening within us, no matter how they try to stop that, you know?
Absolutely. What you just said is so true and so profound. Beautifully said, and it is absolutely so true. So there's a reason why the Kundalini serpent is coiled 3.5 times. And by the way, if you look at a Tesla coil, which is what is coming for all of us, this is what the MAGA, Make America Great Again, Make America Great Again, is all about turning the 5G wireless network into a series of Tesla towers. Tesla towers. And who just recently publicly capitulated to Donald Trump and officially came over to the White Hats, and that is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, what is the name of his company? Tesla. And it's very interesting because in the beginning, when he was just a guy who was making an electric car, he actually had very little in common with Nikola Tesla. Because again, if you know Tesla, Tesla was much more about magnetism than he was about electricity. And so it was very interesting. And of course, people at the time were just going, well, he's trying to use the genius associated with the Tesla name and apply it to himself and his cars and whatever else. But you see, this is a plan. This is a plan that JFK Jr., whose plane went missing in July 16th, 1 in 6 is 7, July 16th of 1999, 21 years ago, and Donald Trump began to rapidly put together this incredible plan. It is a plan that has outthought, outschemed the cabal, and they've always been 5 steps ahead of the cabal at every single turn. And the key to everyone listening, the key was when in their haste to know all about us, because remember, these Canaanites of the left brain, these are little rats, and that's why they always like to go below ground, and that's why they're always scurrying about and hiding and all of these things, because they're always afraid, because they're little rats. And those are who we've allowed to rule over us, by the way, are just these little rats of the left brain. And so what they do and what they have done is to desperately collect information on us, collectively constantly know what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're saying. And so they created this incredible, because that's what the left brain does. If you allow the left brain to just obsess, it'll obsess with thought, it'll obsess with, completion,
technology.
And that's right. And it'll just push it into technology. And that's what they did. Now, the last group that they gave this technology to was the NSA. Why? Because the NSA is connected to the military, and the military is the group that they trust the least. Why? Because the average person that goes voluntarily into the military does so because they're trying to make a difference. And it's a profound difference because they're willing to put their lives on the line. So these are very brave people by definition. And these are very selfless people by definition, because they're looking to make a change, make the world a better place, and they're willing to lay down their lives. So that is the essence of the volunteer within the military. And so there are lots of goodly, godly people within the military. And this is where this all began to happen, where JFK Jr. was looking for friends, was looking for partners, was looking for people that would help him in his desire to take down the cabal and to revenge the assassination of both his father and his uncle, and to right this ship and to reverse this insanity. He reached out to his best friend in the world, which was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's favorite president was the 35th president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And they had an eternal bond between each other, and they began to do this. This is why on July 21st, which was just 5 days after JFK Jr. died, Donald Trump was on the Larry King show, and he announced that he was going to be running for president of the United States. He never said when, but he said, I'm here to announce my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. And then on the show, by the way, everyone, this is the first comm or hidden message or communication between JFK and Donald Trump and us QAnons, or those whose minds are switched on. What Donald Trump said on the show, nobody picked it up, but he said, so I have here, Larry, a letter that was written on July 19th. And so it was written on July 19th from John. And and what it says to me is the following, and he read all of this out, and he was reading this 2 days after on July 21st. Well, it's like, Trump, you're such a dummy, because the guy died on July 16th. So there's no way he can write a letter on July 19th. But he went out of his way to say that, and he made a pause. So he was bringing attention to the fact that the letter was written on July 19th. So if you were present and listening, he was telling you in plain sight that JFK Jr was still alive, because the letter was written on July 19th. And it's just gone on forever since then, with all of these drops, these Q drops. But you have to know symbology, and you have to know numerology, which are all God's creations. They're all beautiful. They're not evil. And so when you do, you begin to see that everything that Donald Trump does is in code. So why did he make the mistake with coffee, and instead of saying coffee, covfefe? Because covfefe is code, and co is cobalt, and va is vanadium, and fefe is iron. And the thing that is so brilliant about this is that one relates to what is necessary to make the Tesla coil work. And by the way, what did for Nikola Tesla's coil, the Tesla coil, which is shaped like the bottom is the sacrum, then it has a spine, and then it has the microprocessor, which is the brain. So again, that's the Holy Land in plain sight. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at the Holy Land is the Tesla coil. And the Tesla coil winds or unwinds, depending on you look at it, 3.5 times from the base, the sacrum, up to the brain. And then it transmits this unwinding of magnetic energy upwards into a field. And that's what magnetism does. It floods and it fills an area. And then when it floods and it fills the area, what magnetism does, very differently from electricity. Electricity is vibrations, okay? So vibratory waves. What magnetism does is that it pulses. Aha! And what does a pulse do? A pulse, which goes from the monadic dot of the monadic circle in the very center. So this is, you see, this is all meditation. This is all spiritual connection to God, and in the stillness and silence and that single moment. And what does magnetism do? It pulses. And what does a pulse create? It creates a 360 degree complete circle. So why does Donald Trump always simply say that no one left behind, not one single person or child left behind? Why? Because he's going to make America great again through magnetism, and magnetism pulses in 360 degrees. Nobody gets missed. So here we have this announcement just recently that Elon Musk of the Tesla company has agreed to create the largest Tesla manufacturing plant in history in Texas. Okay, so why Texas? Well, what's going on in Texas right now? Well, they're very busy because they're building the wall between the United States and Mexico. Well, what if I were to tell you that the wall that they're building is a Tesla wall, and that the wall is filled with Tesla coils, and that the wall is designed to transmit wireless, free magnetic energy, which will eternally run. It never dissipates. You never have to worry about turning every single switch on for every single piece of equipment. There's no dissipation of magnetical energy. So with, again, electricity, if you turn 3 or 4 major things on at once, you could blow a fuse. you could blow a fuse. That's what happens in the left brain when we try to do too much. We lose our mind and we blow a fuse and we go off on temper tantrums because we're not a field. And the right brain, which is a field of magnetism, it floods. So the wholeness, it's a wholeness, and the wholeness is this magnetic energy, and it pulses gently, just like the crown of the chakras, the purple crown, the seventh crown, or the seventh chakra, the purple crown, gently pulses purple rain, which is what Prince sang about. You know, Prince is not Illuminati. He kept singing about the exaltation of man to know God by raising themselves up, but somehow he's evil. So, and
but he's not, just because he was a Jehovah's Witness, and he was super established in the fact that he was not, this was he was one of the more spiritually, like, this is who I am. This is like exactly. So I always saw that from him, and felt like he was also too smart to just kind of go out the way that he did. But
very good. That's right. Very good. And he didn't go out the way he did. If people don't know this, but with all these people that have faked their deaths and have been saved from these Illuminati ritual sacrifices, they all have one thing in common. They all became friends with Donald J. Trump and Michael Jackson. Yeah, Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson was going through the worst time in his life with these court cases about molesting children, and all Michael Jackson wanted to do was to be the Mother Mary and to heal, to give care and compassion, because of course he was raped by his father, and he was just physically
castrated by his father.
That's correct. So he went through hell upon earth through this uncaring male, the phallic symbol, the erected penis that doesn't make love. It rapes and it thrusts and it thrusts and it damages and it steals and it's brutal. And that's, of course, his father. So Michael Jackson, just in child trauma, just reverted to the sacred feminine mother, which, of course, just look around where she's gone. Out of organized society, where's the mother? She's gone. She's replaced by Ishtar and the princesses of Babylon. And so it's all shake your booty, shake your booty, shake your booty. And oh boy, I just want to see some breasts, and I just want to see some ass, and I just want to say, sex, sex, is beautiful. Everything in God's creation is sex, because of course the father is still and silent, and the mother is magnetism, is constant motion, and that the constant loving rubbing of the father back and forth by the mother, because she loves the father so much, and the sex never stops, that it produces eternal friction. And just look in any technical manual or any journal, and of course, what is the definition of electricity? Friction. Friction.
I mean, best metaphor there is that your consciousness is penetrating through reality every waking second of your existence. So reality itself is the feminine. Your consciousness, this linear focus, is penetrating through that. You are literally having divine union or having sex with reality every waking second of your existence. It is interwoven into all things. We have just, unfortunately, through our suppression and repression of sexuality in our society and in the world, have obsessively warped and perverted the concept of a single act to take away from what is connecting all things, and what your conscious experience through reality every waking second is actually embodying, which is the exact same thing, which is why it makes it so powerful. And it's also so powerful how they warp and distort it.
Right. Absolutely brilliant. And what you said earlier is that what we come to learn is that the reason that things are coiled up, and the reason that things are actually hidden and things are fairly complex on the surface of things, is because the power that God gave us is staggering. We are not just his most exalted creation for just no reason. We are the exalted creation because we possess powers that are stunning. We are powerful, powerful, powerful creations. We built the pyramids. We are the ones that projected wisdom and projected healthcare through the capstone of the pyramid by going inside And there's the king chamber, which is the pineal gland. There's the queen's chamber, which is exact location, exact proportionate size to the pituitary gland of the brain. And then there's the central chamber in the middle. That's the optic thalamus. And then when the father, the king, and the mother, the queen, when they went into the pyramids for 3 days, Jonah and the whale, it did not happen. It's an allegory for deprivation of the 5 physical senses and dropping out of the physical realm into the metaphysical realm. And when we do that, then we activate the kundalini within us and it rises. And that's what the pyramids were doing. It channels everything up to that focal point at the top. And then the capstone, because it was made out of pure gold, it then takes this radial energy, this eternal radial energy of the Sacred Mother Mary, and this is beautifully rising to the capstone. And what it does is it magnifies it. And so projecting, that's why the pyramids are all built on these ley lines, because then the signal is further extended in its power and its scope. And so then these healing waves of the magnetic mother are being projected out. And that's what a real king is. That's what a real queen is. It isn't somebody who is of a bloodline and you just happen to be the son of Philip, and they that's not how it happened anyways. But anyways, right. You have to earn the title of king and queen. These are the shamans. So the true healers of Egypt were the tribesmen, the plainsmen, and the shamans of these plains tribes. And these are positions that are earned. These are mastars. These are not apprentices like Prince Andrew and Prince Philip that rape children and eat them. These are mastars, and these are great men that perform, and great women that perform magical creations. Okay, so they do this by going within, and then they project outwards, because all life is emergent in form. So like you're saying, these things are hidden from us. These things are coiled up because the force that we possess is so powerful that, we could take down entire buildings. We could take entire blocks out if we had access to these powers and didn't know how to control them and didn't know how to properly use them. And of course, the biggest one that I'm going to leave your audience with this today, the biggest one of all relates to sex. And because this is the ultimate powerful expression of the raising of the kundalini through this beautiful dance between the masculine and the feminine. And so this is this white tantric or sacred sex. We call it unity consciousness sex, because this is two worlds, the yin and the yang becoming one. So this is two worlds becoming one, uniting, the electricity and the magnetism uniting and exalting ourselves in service to the Father. So there's nothing pornographic about this at all. Everything is done in pure joy, in pure glory of being connected to our eternal Father and the lovemaking. And so this is a big one, folks. This is a huge one. If you've listened to my podcast, you probably heard this before, but you absolutely, now, of course, you have 4 children. So I'll tread lightly here, but the idea is that we are never supposed to ejaculate our semen outwards, because of course, that is our essence. That is our very essence. And it's why we feel a certain way after the ejaculation. Then people go, well, but Charlie, then how are we supposed to procreate if we don't ejaculate out our semen? And it's like, seriously? You don't know this? That's what the Bible teaches. That's what the whole biblical story is, right? So it is immaculate conception. And then it's like, oh, come on, immaculate conception, that was, God and the Virgin Mary. And no. These are all parables for us. Place your name here is the title of the Bible. The Bible is place your name here. Everything and everyone is about this. So we possess powers that are just pure magic and are incredible. But to do that, you have to become all K aligned. alkaline, alkalinity is all K aligned. So that is all of the K in alignment. And the K is father above, mother below, and the straight, sturdy spine of the child connecting in the exact middle between two worlds. And that is the Holy Trinity. And that is the power of powers. That is the strength of strength. That is the wisdom of wisdom. You can never be defeated in battle. You can never be lied to. You can never suffer loss when you are connected to the father and the mother. And that is the whole point of all of this is family. And,
Yes.
so a
And
lot
I
of
do
us
want to, plant
disagree.
the seed, literally plant the seed, just for people watching out of context, as a Taoist practitioner, as a tantric practitioner for years. I can tell you that there is a phrase in the Tao called stealing the tiger's purse. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of training to
Yes.
be able to control your pelvic floor muscles and actually learn how to circulate these fluids that naturally build. And they build because our system was conditioned to a lower level of more animalistic sexuality and procreation. And so humans have been so conditioned to, even on a glandular level, on a reproductive level, and we've been so dumbed down, and we haven't been taught sacred sexual sciences since we were little. They weren't passed down from parents to child. So don't just go trying to do this. I tell this to people I work with a lot, especially a lot of men. I work specifically with men's health. I work with the prostate. I work with mutilated genitals that you could call circumcision, but it's not. There is a deep level of trauma, and almost a good majority of the male populace has unfortunately had their sacred center mutilated, which means it's also not operating at its divine place because it actually was compromised. And, we could get into it on another show, but if you look at Ganesha, who was known as the patron saint of the tantric arts, and you look at an uncircumcised lingam, it kind of looks like the same thing. Kind of looks like an elephant trunk, and like your sacred guardian of your sacred center was actually clipped, was mutilated, which is compromising that guardian and that center. So what I do want to say is that you can practice your pelvic floor like gradually to condition it, and you can practice learning how to hold and pull with your breath to start pulling. There's a feeling of like you're holding from, like you have to go pee, and you can, when you take a deep breath, and you'll watch even in my torso when I do this, there's you'll see the stomach, it kind of pulls like a vacuum, and you're supposed to pull. You're supposed to pull that fluid upward. That's
right.
And at the same time, you're supposed to be practicing this and not focusing on dropping your stomach and all the pressure in your belly, so that power and life force wants to just leave you. So I do want to say that that all of the magical beings that I have had have been not accidental. There has been holding and refinement of these practices and embodying them has allowed for a lot more magic and freedom with my partnership. But at the same time, life comes in a very unique way, and it is all destined to be so. But I will say that each one of these magical beings was like a period where I actually surrendered, to that process. And outside of that, the refinement of what you're speaking of and the higher internal process is so much more euphoric, so much more advanced in its orgasmic bliss than you even have any idea. So if you think that the lower level realms are magical of what human beings can do, start investing in this detoxification, this purification, this activation, this cultivation, and watch what you can do. You'll be amazed. We've just been dumbed down, as Charlie has said. We've been controlled. And Charlie, it's a good point. Drug dealers, they don't cage, goats or like a little bunny rabbit. They cage giant tigers because there's something fascinating for them with caging something powerful.
Yes.
So when you look at us as a people and how enslaved we are, that is because of the potential of our true divine nature and our power. That's why they like doing it. They wouldn't be interested if we weren't powerful. In
That's
fact,
right.
they've tricked you to think you're not powerful at all. And ironically, you're more open to looking at numerology and symbology that they've conditioned you with than being open to what we're talking about, which is connecting the same symbology and numerology to show you a path towards the light. So
Yeah.
look at that as well, because look in your life how much your numerology, and symbolism is conditioned into you that you recognize and identify as, oh, that's normal. Oh, I recognize that. And then realize there's an entire other path that has been kept from you, and you can choose to look into that. And we both support you too, Charlie. It's been an honor to have you on. I would love to do another show with you just to get into more of what I feel like we barely scratched the surface of. I'm so grateful that you're out there doing this, that you are bringing all this information together. You've activated some major pieces for me in my own internal personal practices as a teacher, as a practitioner. And I would love to just come on your show at some point and talk about neuromuscular release there, because I feel like it's there's a full self-treatment system that we're doing it. Ironically, you ready? 12 video with the 13th video that's the intro to break down how to treat your own body cross-laterally, opening all of the structure. So applicable sciences, they're non-threatening. Each video is like 10-15 minutes, shows you how to do each section and unlock that chemical cage we talked about.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes.
Oh, it's okay. You saw I got naked 3-year-olds running around and wolf dogs, so I feel you. We the window is closing in this, but happy full moon activation. Such an activating show, and I'm so grateful. And yeah, I would love to continue the exploration and discussion. Truly an honor.
Yeah, igualmente, amigo. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to be doing lots more together. And I'll just leave everybody with this. Remember, the Bible is not some boring, difficult to read book. It is the most fascinating treatise on human chemistry, on human biology, and upon spirituality or philosophy. It is a master creation, as are all the sacred texts. You just have to know how to read it. And again, the thing that is the most disturbing about what people would call, say, the literalist Christians who literalize, well, that's not really accurate, because the only thing that they literalize is the word or definition of their priests and pastors that are telling them what these words mean, or telling them what these passages mean, instead of reading it for themselves. And if they just simply took the time to read it for themselves and go with what is actually being said, what they would soon find is that what the Bible is truly saying is diametrically opposed to what the Pharisees of the church are literally teaching and saying. So the Bible has been demonized. Therefore, God has been demonized as some sick con game. The fact of the matter is, if you simply knew how to read the Bible, you would see that God never killed anyone. The children of the Bible are thoughts. We must take no thought. That's, again, Matthew chapter 6. And Jesus, so in 6:22, it says, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will fill with light. And then from 6:23 to 6:34, Jesus says 5 times, take no thought for your life. And 5 times to symbolize 5 wounds, to symbolize the death of the physical realm, to enter into the metaphysical realm. And this is crucifixion. That is, of course, what exactly happened. It's not being nailed to a cross. That never happened. Again, if you want to think that I'm not going to fight you on this because the story is far too important and it's just simply too beautiful. There have been many, many beautiful ascended ones that have come before us. But the important message is that you must crucify the stimulation to the left brain so that you can cross the river as Jacob did and enter into a place called Israel. Isis, Amen Ra El. That is mother, father, child. That is magnetism. That is dielectricity, stillness, silence, and that is friction. And that's what they're telling you in plain sight. So if you take the time to know the Bible, you will know thyself. And remember, what does the Bible say? One of the most important understandings of the Bible, and that is the real wealth of this world is the wisdom, is truth. And that when you are lacking in truth, you are the poorest, impoverished of beings. And so by reading the Bible, reading it, knowing how to read it, this is what we teach, this is what we show. It is the greatest story ever told. It is the highest of highs, the holies of holies. And the Bhagavad Gita is the same. The Quran is the same. The Vedas and the Upanishads are the same. The Buddhist sutras are the same. You go on and on and on with all of these incredible sacred texts, and they are beautiful beyond description. You just have to know how to read them. Nobody teaches that. Sacred sex, nobody teaches that. Alkalinity, nobody teaches that. The real meaning of Santa Claus and who Santa Claus truly is within you is the opposite is taught of that.
And
like
what did Mark Twain say? Mark Twain said, if you're standing with that whole group of people over here, that go get away from that. So look at the fact that everyone is believing these things and it hasn't been taught this. Start venturing out away from the masses, because you should see that that's where the mass manipulation has come through. Charlie, how can people find you?
We are so busy with our animals and so busy with our teaching. It's just what I love to do. So all I provide time for outside of doing the podcast on our YouTube channel, which is Freak Sense TV, is we just keep a home on Facebook. And, you know, Facebook is a nasty piece of work, but it's just what we have.
We're in the trenches. We're in the trenches.
That's right. So, and that is Charlie Freak 16, and the Freak on Facebook is FREEK because they wouldn't allow me to have EAK. And then what we tried to do there is just answer questions and stay connected. And we have a incredibly big and wonderful family. We have a group of people who are truly humble before God, that are truly saying, I just want to know the truth, and I do not care where it leads me. And of course, as I said to you at the beginning, that's the journey that Colleen and I have been on. We do not care what it makes us look like to some people. All we want to do is celebrate God's creation. All we want to do is spread and teach and support and love and nurture and care for God's creation. It's why we take care of the animals, because if the situation reversed, believe me, they'd be taking care of us. So moving forward, this is the way. We have to all cast our nets to the right. This is what's gone on, and what's happened is because we've allowed the demons to cast their nets to the left, and we've been asleep through all of this.
Because we didn't understand what was going on. And
right.
And in that regards, Charlie and I both also, we have this podcast, this radio show on People for People Radio. And I got to say, our producers are amazing. They put so much effort and time in, but we are an independent network. And unfortunately, because of the lockdown and the economic collapsing process that we're in, we have all, as broadcasters, been informed that unless we can start generating just basic costs for our site and to pay our amazing producers, specifically going to give a shout out to Gaz, who puts 30 hours a week into these shows, we're not going to be able to continue on with People for People Radio. So I want to ask humbly and that's why I believe that Gaz has just kind of put this out in the most humble way, because truly pride is one of the greatest sins that the divine has beef with, so to speak. And you wouldn't think so, but pride, is it. And so humbly, we're sharing that in order for us to continue from a very independent and obviously not funded in any way authentic source for news and information, we're going to put links in both our YouTube live video, and we'll put links in the chat room on People for People Radio. If you can, I know times seem to be tough, but as Charlie has shared, for the bird that God makes sure to take care of, do you think that bird is gonna be taken care of, and we wouldn't?
Wow.
So
Yeah, what's coming, my friends, with Jasara, and remember, please don't get confused by this. Jasara is only giving you what's rightfully yours.
right,
This is nobody saying,
it's
I'm
not a
gonna go die and
handout.
vote for me. No, they're getting rid of what's illegal and they're giving you what is rightfully yours. And so money is the least of it, but I will say to you that as a very pleasant surprise, there is going to be a massive amount of money that is going to come back to each and every single person.
I
No
feel
one
it.
will be missed. Not in any country, not any child. Everyone will share in what has been taken off of our back, off of our labor, off of our sweat, off of our pain and suffering, and it's going to be given back. So I guarantee you. And remember, the future is Make America Great Again, because that's Mag and A. A is Alpha, and Alpha is the Father, which is God, which is taken away from us. And magnetism is the eternal mother, which is the eternal energy. And once we are gifted eternal energy, and remember, this is magnetism, it doesn't dissipate. It is so powerful. You will never have to, if you don't want to, you'll never have to work again at another job. You'll have, once you have this eternal energy, you can provide for yourself forever. You'll be able to pump a potable water to you or irrigation water to you, and you'll be able to grow everything you need. And you'll be able to homeschool your children. You'll be able to turn your home and your mind into the Garden of Eden. And that's what we're supposed to do, because that's heaven upon earth.
And if you want to work, you can, but it's going to be off things that you want to do, that the skills you wanted to develop. Or, if you're a painter and you love painting, you'll do that because you love doing it, not because you have the pressure or you feel like you're going to have to pay to live on a plane, on a planet that you were born on, just to hold space there. So there are some major shifts. We have a few months to get through of some transitions that will test all of our faith. I guarantee you that. But holding strong, staying connected with each other is kind of the ultimate thing I'm bringing it back around to. So if you feel it, there will be links to be able to support us. And again, I don't even think we really need that much in the scheme of things, but this is one of the parts I wanted to play with Charlie on to really promote that, because these guys work so hard, and we would even be down to finance it ourselves, so to speak, but we're all slammed in this time. So this is a time for us to be tested, to share the prosperity that's infinite in the illusion of it being finite right now. So you can find me at Matrix Body Mechanics Live, Matrix Body Mechanics TV. We do this every Monday. It's awesome that Charlie, does his on Monday too. And I feel like the synchronicities are ridiculous, but it's the beginning of the next increment of time, moving into what appears to be the unknown with great change and transformation. So it's a great time to plant these seeds of awareness and allow you to explore it. So please take each one of these. I'm going to put the links to some of Charlie's more just detailed videos to explore this. And I challenge you to do your research, see all of this corroborates, it all correlates, and it's all been, we've already been looking to prove this, because we want that grounding and placement for the truth already. So nothing that this man or myself is talking about, we wouldn't waste your time with things that we haven't explored and found a full, not only left brain logical confirmation, but an intuitive, sacral, full goosebumps. Whoa, this is truth. And we saved you the time on some level. And yet at the same time, don't just listen to us, explore it for yourselves. This has been a Matrix Body Mechanics live broadcast. Thank you so much, Charlie. I look forward to speaking to you again, truly.
Thank you, my friend. It was a wonderful show, and I really appreciate being part of it. And say hi to your beautiful family and enjoy. And namaste, my friend. What you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you, and you as well. And I look forward to another show. I'm going to plant the seed for us to really get into preparing for that December 21st to January 1st shift. Let's go into that, because I want people to know what happens around that time if you tune in and prepare for it every year, and how special this specific one this year is going to be, closing out a 6,000-year cycle.
Yeah, it's going to be major.
Yeah. Blessings to you, sir. Blessings to you all. Satnam and aloha.
Adios, amigos.